Good afternoon, everybody. I'm really excited to see all of you here today. My name is Mike. I am a coach and kind of a partner here with Coach U. Here today to help talk about ways that you can take your team to the top. I'm really excited. Here from Seattle, Washington. The weather today is sunny, so it's a great day as far as we're concerned. And whereabouts are all of you from? I see things popping up. People also in Seattle, Phoenix. Okay. Oh, New York. Wonderful to have you with us. Philadelphia, Boston. Oh, perfect. So it looks like we have a lot of people joining us here from around the United States. Ooh, Toronto too, and from Canada. Thank you very much for being with us here today. A little bit about me, and then we'll go ahead and jump right into it. I've been a coach for 20 years. One of the things that really drives me to be a coach is to see the impact that we can help leverage for people in leadership positions. I'm also a kind of a client partner. I like to help find people who are interested in either becoming a coach or leveraging the advantages of coaching into their organizations. So I kind of help partner with their whole journey to getting a hold of these services and implementing them into their organizations. Today, well, without further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen and start talking about some insights and advantages for you here today. Here we are, leverage coaching techniques. Take your team to the top with speed, productivity, and engagement. Again, if you need to reach out to me at any time, please feel free to pull up your smartphone, scan this QR code, and feel free to book a 15, 30-minute meeting with me at any time. You'll also see some closed captions coming up here. A large part of our audience reached out to me and said that they couldn't make this meeting on time, people in Asia and in Europe. So I've put these closed captions up here for people who do not have English as their first language. And I hope it aids some of you who are probably going to watch this on its recording and do it with the volume off. Let's go ahead and get started. Today, in this less than 30-minute webinar, where I'm going to share with you some great data-driven insights on how becoming a leader as a coach can be even more impactful in your career and also in your side hustle if you choose to become a coach and build up your competencies, perhaps into a full-time role. Or if you're already in that full-time role, how to give yourself more credibility in it. I often like to say that sure, you can fly with a pilot that is really good and not licensed, but would you? Same thing with a coach. Having one that's credentialed from the ICF level 1 and level 2, that's ACC and PCC, will help add a lot of credibility to your name so that you can be more impactful and credentialed in your role as a coach. 2, we're going to look at transforming from a leader to a coach. Being a great leader, whether technical or people leader, is great already, but there are much more advantages out there if you can become a coach as well and use coaching principles. We have a lot of evidence, which unfortunately I won't share today, that show huge gaps in succeeding as a leader compared to succeeding even greater as a leader, as a coach. Number 3, we're going to look at how to use some coaching techniques to avoid common pitfalls that people make. Right now, coaching is gaining a lot of momentum as a coaching culture, organizational culture, to build your culture, given the framework there of coaching to help drive big changes and organizational transformation by having people who can be more flexible, adaptable, and can drive people toward a future is much more impactful than those who don't have these essential competencies. Well, let's go ahead and jump into it. You'll notice that I use a lot of hiking pictures here. I oftentimes say that the journey in coaching is a lot like hiking up a mountain because there are multiple ways to do it, and you're going to have fun and according to your specific challenges along the way. Today's insights are sponsored by these three entities here. We have Coach an executive and teams coaching company, coaching global organizations to activate dialogue. I like to think of dialogue as the body and the heart and the brain working with the rest of the body. If you're walking and you stub your toe, your neuro system will respond to your brain, say, look, you stub your toe and it's hurt. You need to do something about it. And using this as an analogy with your organization, if one department stubs its toe per se, how does this information get fed back to the controlling part of the organization, the C teams and the executives? If you're more interested in that, please check out their website or scan their QR code there. Coach U is a coaching clinic for fast tracking the essential competencies development, and a lot of the information insights they've given to me or what I've put into this insight sharing event here for you today. You can also get ICF, ACC, and PCC certified through them, and it's an enjoyable process. Last of all, the Coaching Research Institute is an arm of Coach A. It's the way of how they've gone out and proven that coaching and organizational coaching is incredibly important, not only for the organization through change and transformation, but for making people feel happier and more engaged in playing with putting that passion back into their roles. I take the time to thank all these sponsors again. All right, let's look briefly at what we're going to do. One of my theories always in coaching is let's make it tangible today, tomorrow, or by next Tuesday. And in that light, we're going to look at three main things today. The first there, you see a picture or an icon of a little graph. I'm going to share some really cool data with you today. Also, we're going to look at some tools and how you can leverage them to start implementing coaching as early as this afternoon, if you're in Seattle, and tomorrow if you're in Asia or Europe. And we'll also talk about some common pitfalls to avoid and how can we enable coaching as a competency even more significantly, and so you can see the benefits in the future. Last of all, you can see one of the icons down here in white. This is the technique, and today we're not going to talk a lot about technique because we just don't have the time. This is perfect if you want to take like a coaching clinic or take your ICF level 1, level 2 credentials to get a lot of practice, right? Look at the picture here behind you. You don't get to the top of the mountain without any practice and without any assistance from team members. So that last part is something that we're going to follow up with later on. You can always feel free to scan my QR code or find me on Calendly and schedule a call to discuss this in more detail later on. Let's start it off. Here we are looking at getting data-driven insights. It's one of my favorite pictures here too on data along with reality. If we can see the map and all the approaches, we will have a better idea on how we're going to go out onto this journey. So today, my hope of sharing a couple of insights here will be so that you can see the impact of coaching. You would have all seen this in the advertising. I was actually a little bit modest here. There's more than a 10% impact on profit. Leader as coach has been defined as one of the top 10 must-have skills by 2030 because so much is going on. You take the advent of AI, even before that, agile project management, the digital revolution. We are on the course now for people in technical and managerial roles that need to have greater flexibility, adaptability, and the ability to not just tell people what to do, but to partner with them and help them achieve future solutions that haven't even been made yet. The first share here is the 10.6% profit gain measured over a 3-year period. This is a real report that you can access too by scanning the QR code for the Coaching Research Institute. Does executive coaching really have an impact on management? The answer came back as a strong yes. If you look at the data here below, you can see that in the first bar graph, companies that use Coach A services, 60 of them, were able to achieve a 10.6% profit gain and that's according to stock analysis of the 3-year CAGR profit, compared to, if you look at the red negative bar graph there below, you're looking at negative 2.9% for the 1,604 companies that did not use a Coach A service. So the takeaway here, coaching at an executive level definitely has an impact on teams. Now, if you take that and copy and paste it into other teams and departments, if you can do coaching with the team leader and the key people in the organization, you too can produce a significant return on investment. Let's look at this next piece of data here. You can see on the right is the actual data that the CRI researchers produced. Comparing the blue there, highlighted in yellow, with the red part, you can see that there is a significant difference between organizations that invested into building relationships with coaching. In fact, there was a 58% stronger presence of it in those leadership skills than there was without it. My takeaway from this is highlighted here in yellow on the left. If your culture and engagement needs the framework of coaching to thrive through change and transformation. If you're doing any big things in the company, consider doing a coaching program along with it, or getting a few people to get accredited in coaching so that they can help make it a smoother transition. Let's get into some of the meat here of today's webinar. 2 is transform yourself into a leader as a coach. My guess is if you're here today, you're already a fantastic tech, product, or people or project leader. And your trajectory is already looking very nicely for your career. Though as a coach, the data shows that you'll be able to fast track this, either hit key milestones earlier or have greater impact in terms of your personal career mobility and elevating your titles upward faster, and for getting your teams to achieve more in less time and to do it happily. Imagine that. Let's take a look at a couple of these concepts together. First one of my favorites is how to go from a manager to a leader. What does that look like? Now there's 7 of them here and I won't talk through all of them today, but some of my favorites were highlighted there in white. If you look at a manager, one of their key goals is to get everybody to adopt their expectations. Having been a manager and a director before in previous roles and also currently in my role now, I know that every year the organization comes out with targets, and those targets get translated into expectations. And those, whether or not we meet those expectations, are determined by your key performance indicators, your KPIs. And sometimes if you have a strong development program in your company, also your key behavior indicators. Those have been discovered as key competencies needed to achieve that expectation. And as a manager, if I'm sitting down with some of my team members, I might tell them things like, this is the company's goal. We're here to provide or to contribute as much as possible so that we can meet these expectations. As a leader, as coach, I might take a step back, sit or stand next to my team members and say, hey, this is the expectations. We all know they exist. How do we foresee ourselves getting there? And I see this approach being taken even into OKRs, or into the objective key results, being able to give people not necessarily the time and the expectation step by step, but the awareness of what the expectation is, and then kind of empowering them to come up with the way they would do it. And a lot of times what we're seeing from people we coach, manager, director, and executives, is that when they empower their people to make their own sort of journey up the mountain, so to speak, they usually do it with less time. They identify their own challenges or areas of pitfall, and they're able to identify a little bit better as to what kind of people or resources they need to get something done faster. Another big one that I didn't highlight here is the difference between directing on the left under manager and partnering as a leader. Managers are responsible for directing people, and oftentimes I hear from people that I coach that they have to do this more often than they would like. And this happens in cases where they've given a project, somebody doesn't get it done on time, they have to follow up with that person. They feel like there's perhaps the lack of responsibility or accountability on that deliverable. And following up, maybe setting some kind of discipline in place, like this needs to be done in a certain amount of time. I would have appreciated that you would have shared it with me that it wasn't going to get done by today. And maybe even include some kind of disciplinary. If you don't do this, then your future here at our company might be in question. Or if you don't do this, then certain people are going to look at it and not be satisfied with your performance. There's usually some kind of tag on there that a manager feels like they must give in order to motivate that person away from something that they don't want. Whereas leaders as coach, you're stepping back and partnering with somebody. They didn't do it. Stand back, reassess the situation, look at it together and say, what's going on here? What are some of the roadblocks you're experiencing? How can we work better together? How can I support you? What kind of support do you need? It creates a whole different spin or a tone on the relationship between you as the leader, as a coach, and the people that are on your team. Being able to look at that and know how to achieve it together is incredibly helpful. I'm going to make an example of one of the biggest ones that you've probably seen here before, and which Coach U is kind of where it all got started, where the International Coaching Federation started and how they've been communicating this message of telling versus asking. Now let's look at it together in the example here below. So, of course, we title it Coaching Approach to Communication. You can see kind of a rectangle bar, kind of a rectangle graph there with a sliding scale down below, and we're looking at the two key words on this graph, managing versus coaching. You can see on the left, telling, which is a directive, to asking, which is the non-directive. Managers often believe it's their job to get out there and tell people what to do. And you can see that on the other side of this spectrum here, a coach's job is to support another to solve their own problems. And we should also probably update that to say some collaborative problems there, because managers oftentimes will share with me in coaching sessions that when they're meeting with people, a lot of it is updates of what happened over the last week or some key things from each project, and sometimes sharing what they need to do to move the project forward. A lot of managers I talk to often come to me with they're kind of pinging in the area of the number 2 down there, solving someone else's problem, and maybe number 3 where they're giving advice. And they say, especially in times when they feel incredibly busy or overworked, that they will kind of stay in that range. People will come to them with a problem. They'll tell them exactly what they would do to fix it and expect that person to go out there and do it. It doesn't always get done as fast as that manager wants it to be done, but it ends up being done. The coaching approach is something which you don't need to do every single time, especially in those busy times. We'll talk about it later. It could be challenging, but little by little, starting to offer guidance, ask questions, and support the other's own problems. One of my favorite things to do if I have a little extra time is to say, hey, how would you go about doing this? After the person explains it, if I don't really like the option, I might say, that's one option. What's another one? And if they tell me 3 times that they really don't know, then I'll go back and I'll give some advice. And I might say, well, one option that I would probably do is looks like this. Talk to this person, get that thing done, move on to the next piece. Telling versus asking. Great coaches will end up asking more questions, letting their team members do the talking. Another incredibly important concept in coaching is for coaching to really happen, we need to build trust. And you can see here a circle, the sphere of influence. That's how much me as a manager or leader, as a coach, can have an impact on my team members. For that to happen, we need that middle piece, the trust there. And in order to get that, our intention has to be positive. I'm actually always sharing early on in coaching calls with people that intentions oftentimes need to be clarified and need to be voiced out. An intention is usually positive for us and positive for our team and positive for the department. But how often do we share that with people? Usually we think, it's up here in my mind or in here in my heart, and I'm able to get it out there by role modeling it. But by sharing it as a strong intention, you're able to help give people sort of that clear direction they need to move forward with, and they know that you're there to support them. Also, you see here the relationship is important. So any way you can build those relationships with people. I had one manager yesterday telling me a few years ago he thought the most pivotal thing to building the relationship with his team was talking about Game of Thrones every Monday morning for 20 minutes over coffee before they looked at their weekly plan. He said that really helped him drive and build some of that relationship there. Words and deeds, you also see up there. One of the things that catches my mind the greatest is that people remember the negative things you say more often than the positive. So if you can mitigate those negative things out of the speech or share critical feedback that comes across as constructive feedback, ways to get better, and remember that your intention for sharing those might need to be voiced. Say things like, hey, I'm here to support you, and I see a key area where I think you could perform even better on. And you'll oftentimes hear me making a metaphor between coaching in sports and coaching in leadership. And that's one thing I remember a really good coach, a really good soccer coach of mine doing, was saying, look, this looks pretty good already. If you were to kick this ball just a little bit underneath and give it a little bit more power, you'll be able to spin that ball into the back of the net. Looking at the time here, we have about 7 minutes left today. How's everybody feeling? Seeing thumbs up? Yeah? Somebody has a question there. Yeah, let's save it till the very, oh, actually, go ahead. Yeah. Oh, go back to this one. Let's see here. Words and deeds. In the next one, yeah, with the amount of time. Yeah, you know what? You are actually a little bit ahead of where we are in this material. Let me buzz down to the end in a moment, and we'll address this directly. Thank you, Cindy. Number 3, avoiding common pitfalls. And for everybody else, please hold your question, write it down, ask me at the very end. I'll make sure to get to all of them today. If not, later, follow up with me on LinkedIn or scan that QR code that you saw earlier to book a time, 15 or 30 minutes to speak with me directly. I love talking to people. Please use me on that one. One of the biggest pitfalls I see are when to put on the coach hat, when to put on the manager hat. I had a director that I was coaching a while back that had an issue, that has an ongoing issue with one of the, I guess, individual contributors who also has a title manager working for them, that this person needs to develop themselves in order to get a promotion for the next level. And this client of mine was enabled in some coaching skill, but believed that coaching was more about asking questions to lead the other person toward the goal that my client had in their mind. And one of the issues with this is it can be incredibly confusing for the team member. Remember that managers direct you how to do things. They know the answer, direct you how to do things. And a coach is there to enable their team member to kind of carve out their own journey. So in this specific case, I had to share that my personal opinion was that this kind of approach could be made better. And one of the helpful things that I've always found being a leader myself is to, when the coaching opportunity arises, I oftentimes ask people, I say, hey, I'm being a manager right now. And as a manager, I tell you, this is the fastest way to get to the solution that you're looking for. But if you want, I can take my manager hat off and I can put my coach's hat on and we can have a coaching conversation about it. In this way, I distinct between the roles very specifically so that the team member doesn't get confused. Pitfall number 2, and Cindy, this should answer your question from earlier. Don't try coaching when you're in the middle of fighting a fire, especially if you're just coming out for the first time, right? There's a fire there. The right thing to do is to extinguish that fire with water or with a retardant. No need to try to coach the person into coming up with those solutions because that takes a lot of time. And in many of your jobs, you are doing things where people's risk of life or limb is a significant concern. So in these kind of urgent and very important cases, feel free to just tell people what to do. When you have a bit more time, and we'll get to that here in a minute, then you can start integrating some of these coaching techniques. Let's get to that now. You've probably seen something like this before. I learned this from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Here they call it the Eisenhower boxes. I would imagine before I pass away from this earth, we'll see a lot of other people changing the words and coming up with their own way of doing it here. Anyways, that's beside the point. When is coaching most effective? If you look at that matrix there, you see urgent on one side, not urgent on the other, important on the upward y-axis, and not important on the one going down below. When things are urgent, important, like you're fighting those fires, it's going to be challenging to start using the coaching approach. Instead, the better time to do it is in the items that are not so important. When you have more time to practice integrating some of these coaching techniques, time to build trust, time to invest back into sharing your intention with people. If you take that example of fighting a fire, you don't stop and tell people the intention that I'm thinking is that once this fire is out, we will all be safe, calm, and happy. Everybody probably already knows that. So you don't need to do all those things when a fire is going on. Instead, put them down there in the brown or the green. Best time to kind of do some coaching questions. And I realize it's almost 12:30 here. I might take just a couple more minutes to finish this off to make sure that we get everything as needed. Best time to do some coaching is during those non-important times when you have time to enjoy the process too. You don't want it to be a thing that people don't have fun at. Otherwise, they'll label you as the coach that they prefer not to have. Here's a great picture with some coaching style questions. I'm not going to read through them all, but this is the ideal picture of what a coach looks like. Instead of telling people what to do, they say, this is my picture here. What's your picture look like? That person talks about it, and then you find some of the areas that you can collaborate on and move forward. All right, I'll go ahead and finish this up very close to time here. Today, the intended takeaways from my perspective were to give you some data, some tools, and some know-how. What you don't see there is that playbook style icon. We didn't talk at all really about technique, the how to do something. And that's where one of these coaching clinics by Coach U or doing a full-on executive and teams coaching by Coach A could be incredibly helpful for you. Here's some takeaway kind of questions that I'll leave you with here today. What stood out to you today? How would you leverage this data, these tools, and this know-how? And what does taking it to the next level look like for you? My name is Mike Rigg. You'll see me there again with a real smile. And the QR code up there on the right. You can also click this link to follow up with me at any time. We have an upcoming 2-day coaching clinic on October 16th and 17th. It's a 2-day session, just this small price of $1,295. It's a great investment into getting some of these essential skills that you need to fast track your career and help your team shorten the time it takes to achieve, and also so that they can do it very happily and confidently. You can also see some other options from Coach U. We do a customized 2-day coaching clinic for your team or organization. This is ideal if you have about 20 people or less who need some kind of essential soft skills to move up their capability quickly. This is one of the most successful programs we have. If you are a coach practicing without a license, like my earlier metaphor of flying a plane without a license, you will be able to improve your credibility instantly. And you can hear me snapping my fingers there, because you'll be able to improve it fast and have the ICF, International Coaching Federation's ACC and PCC, that's the level 1 and level 2, or you can do them one at a time, level 1 first. As a coach myself, to be honest, I was a quote unquote executive coach and personal coach on leadership topics for how many years? 17 years before I got my first credential. So I used to think that I would never need it, but I didn't. Later on, I didn't want to be recognized as that pilot without a license, right? I had the capability, I had the experience, I had the hours. If I could get credentialed, then I could get respected as a coach. And that's something I'll support and talk about often. Last of all, connect with me at any time. Everybody, thank you so much. Thumbs up if this was helpful for you today. Ooh, I see. Yep, thumbs up. Cindy, thank you. Alex, thank you. Mike, up there in Toronto. Yeah. Oh, somebody in Calgary too. Yeah, fantastic. Glad we could help you out. Greg, yeah. Taylor, thanks. Robert, yeah, thank you. Oh, some questions. Yeah. For most people, I'm going to go ahead and stop the clock right now and get right into some Q&A. Thank you all very much for doing this. Please let me know if you'd like to see more of this kind of insight and resource sharing, especially the specific parts about the data, the tools, the know-how, and of course, follow up with me for some of that hands-on practice, that technique, and getting some feedback from some of our highly distinguishable coaches. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. My gosh, it feels like a Friday for me today. I know I still have to work tomorrow though, but I'm just so excited that we had the chance to do this, and I'm looking forward to the next time. Thank you all very much. Please give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you.